and welcome to the next episode of Chocobo Chasers. I am one of your hosts, G. I'm joined by the Chocobros, Eric and Dash, and we are absolutely thrilled to be joined by none other than Samantha Béart, whom you may recognize as Karlach in the critically and commercially acclaimed Game of the Year contender Baldurs Gate 3. In addition to voicing and doing the mocap for everyone's favorite Tiefling barbarian, you can also find their voice in Ravenbound, the excavation of Hobsparrow as Thomasin, and also in the Demon Souls remake. Samantha, it is absolutely amazing to have you on the show today.
Thank you. What an introduction. I don't think I can top that. You got like everything in there.
Oh, we are on top of it every single time. We try to.
Everybody loves G's intros.
Yeah. No, I'm well impressed. Thank you.
So
great to meet you guys.
It's absolutely awesome to have him. So jumping right into this, so Karlach appears to be kind of one of your largest gaming roles today, especially with the acclaim the game has gotten and your performance, especially as well, by new and returning Baldur's Gate fans. So how much of yourself did you end up putting into this character, and what was kind of the audition process like for you? Because we've interviewed a few different voice actors, and everyone's process is just totally different. So I definitely wanted to get your take on that.
Well, I guess it depends how much time you've got, because I've got a short version to that and a long one. In terms of like how much I put of myself into the casting, I think for me, in my experience, games casting has been what I like to call psychic casting, which is if I guess correctly, I get the role, and if not, then I'm out the door. Like, it's really, really quick. In my experience, there's no time to sort of, it's not like theatre where they sort of know your work, they sort of know your range, and then they'll work with you. Like, there's just no time. So it was just one of those things. And a sort of truncated version of the long answer is 2020, I was put up for the role of, it was codenamed, and it was, what was she called? Kara. So different, right? Kara. And she was a fighter. She wasn't, I think she was a tiefling, which fight, but a lot smaller and a lot more like me, actually, physically. And I'm a bit flappy, as you'll come to know during this interview. And the amazing Kirsty Gilmore, who's a casting director and director in the UK, who that's quite rare in games. Like, she works specifically in games. She recommended me for that, and I didn't get that. And then they asked me to do, they sent out a sheet. I think Neil Newbon's got a really similar story. They sent out a sheet of like 12 different races and said, do 3. So I did 10, as you do. Because, you know, I'm good at everything, right? But also psychic casting, I don't know what they want. And it was like, I was going, right, okay, so they've got these things called plane walkers. I mean, I know a bit about D&D that sounds a lot like Mind Flayers. These guys are really, you know, treading close to dangerous territory and getting sued here. If they're just going to do D&D like this. And they were just slightly changing all the names. I sort of knew what they wanted. At some point, I think I'm going to put the auditions up because they're ridiculous. And I didn't get that. And then sort of over, was it 2021, I was asked to read for like a really small role. And I had a day job at that point, and I had enough money. And this is relevant because I said no, because I didn't need the 1 session fee, right? Because if I went in, someone knew what it was by then. If it was the D&D game, and if I'd gone in at that point, that's my role, right? That 1 hour in the studio, 4 hours in the studio, I'm done, and I'm not even going to be considered. And I thought, well, I won't bother then. I'm obviously not going to be in the D&D game. Cut to the excavation of Hobsparrow came out sort of this time last year. Which is a bit different in style and budget. It's for anyone who hasn't played, I'm sure there aren't many of you, it's a 2D pixel retro 80s sort of looking pixel game in which like there's I had to do a lot with just the voice alone, and I was playing a Victorian quite posh woman. Anyway, from that, because Twitter was working at the time and you could see things in the right order, people were going wild over it. People were so kind about it, and particularly the performances, which was great. And I was checking like who people were, and it was Michael Dowse from Larian wouldn't stop tweeting about it. And I slept on it, and I went, why the fuck did you sleep on that? Just get in the DMs. So I literally slid into his DMs and said, you seem to be a man of good taste. Those are the words I used, because I thought, what have I got to lose? You can just say no or block me, or you're not working on this game. And he said, yes, please, you can audition for the significant role that you've asked to do. And I didn't know what that was. And then this second time going in, knowing I had kind of Larian endorsement, that's what it felt like. That made me a lot more confident in my audition. And therefore, I just did given the circumstances that I was given, and that she was going to be a massive tiefling. I didn't think she was a barbarian. I don't think I was told that, but I knew she was big. I just like gave it the old psychic casting, and then I did a really posh version as well, because they said do something a bit rougher and then do closer to your own accent. So there could have been a Karlach out there who spoke like this, you know, really quite. I don't think she was going to get cast, but no, it was very much like when I got in there, it was like, we have hired you because of who you are, what you gave to that audition. So that was quite easy on in that respect, because AAA game, at the end of the day, they don't give you everything, and your script is a spreadsheet, so you have to sort of work episodically and try and figure it out that way. But in terms of what they gave me, which is essentially that she was sold to hell for 10 years, and she's a fighter, and she's also a really morally good person as well. On top of that, that's actually quite a lot to work with, believe it or not. I felt it was. And then sometimes you have a guess at the backstory, and the actual final bit comes in, you go, yes. And sometimes you have to go, okay, yeah, we can work that in, that's okay, you know, it's all doable. But yeah, it was just one of those where it was just extremely lucky circumstances and things falling into place, and the fact that Twitter worked, and the fact that I was bold about sliding into someone's DMs. So yeah, thanks, Michael. I think Kirsty got to go, yes, see, I told you like 3 years ago about it, or 2 years ago about this. So everyone was happy at the end.
That is amazing. And one of the good ways to slide into the DMs for everybody who's listening. Why don't you go ahead and follow that up?
So everybody on Twitter's talking about how awesome the characters are. They're in love with all of them. If you weren't Karlach, what's one you would want to be?
Okay, so that's actually quite hard to answer, because I'm a PS5 loser, and I literally got the game key last night. Right, so I have as a performer, I've only watched my scenes because the entire game's on YouTube, right? So I've watched my scenes just to see how they work, and that was what I was talking. All right, okay, but I've tried not to watch other people's performances. I mean, if things had gone, if I had gone in when they asked me to, I'd have been playing like random troll number 5 or something. So. I think I would have been like sort of a princess got acolyte, or sort of like a really rough kind of, you know, goblin who talks like that. But I haven't watched the performance and go, yeah, I could have done that, or I could have given it a go, or anything like that. There's certainly no one where I'm going, I think I could have done that better. I think Mazora had a shit ton of fun, and then, she just, because she's so untouchable, and the whole ta-ta and all that, you can have it's very camp, and you can have lots of fun with that. But as I said, unfortunately, I haven't really seen many people's roles. But yeah, Rando Goblin, I think I might have been in another existence.
Dash, you want to go next?
Oh yeah. So you've also done work on the Torchwood audio series. So what was it like to work on a medium where you just have to tell a story with only a voice and no other assistance with like a visual?
Yes, I was lucky, and I had quite a run up to it, because my first professional job was in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So the first 2 stories were radio plays first, and Douglas Adams wrote the books, and then he wrote books 3, 4, and 5, and they weren't adapted in his lifetime. And my character turns up in the 5th book, so slid under that door just before it locked shut. And we recorded those, and when I came out, I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what these people are doing. Everyone's a celebrity, by the way. So that the number one thing is not fall apart. I need to train. And so I went and trained proper theatre school training, like traditional British, Shakespearean, full on everything. And then I went straight back into audio. So I then came out like a lot more confident about styles and genre and all that. But I've sort of specialized in sci-fi and fantasy, which is great because I love it. And I felt it was quite adjacent to games anyway. I felt that was like how I did it. So with Torchwood, I'd already done Vienna with Chase Masterson. I'd done Hitchhikers after. There was another book written. There was a tour. We did a live tour. And then there was Sandman as well, which we sort of improvised our way through, and that was amazing. And I think that's still the number one best-selling thing on Audible. Fantastic. So I was sort of ready for it. But what's interesting about Orr is how sort of neutral Orr is as a character. So Orr is a sort of what do we call them? A psychosexual polymorph. It's easy for me to say. Who uses they them pronouns? Yay. And everyone respects them because it's a fantasy world. And that voice is very neutral because they shapeshift. And then the fun is in when you're taking on the form of someone else, and particularly when we went male, there was some fun mixing in that, but female they sort of let me rip, which was great. But yeah, I've been telling stories in my voice for a very long time, so I feel although I wouldn't count myself as a voice actor because I think that's a skill. I think that's for me that's cartoon voices, ages, accent, that is just purely instrument, you know, whereas I'm thinking I don't get hired to do different voices. I tend to get a version of this in some degree. Yeah, and I don't do audiobooks and commercial, like it just that's not my world. So I think I've been again quite fortunate. But then I worked with people like Scott Hancock who just kept hiring me again and again. So that's always good. Dirk Maggs, you know, who's they call the Spielberg of audio, you know, and he'd get me in for stuff. He's Hitchhiker's Guide and he's Sandman and Alien. God, we did an Alien adaptation as well. So it's something I'm quite used to, but maybe to bring it to Baldurs Gate, because we did I'd say God, almost 95% mocap. You got to dial it back a bit because you got the physicality. It's not, you haven't got the face, but you have got some physicality. So you don't want to be too full on, or it's a bit much. But then when we went in for Barks and like all the vicious mockery lines and all the spells and everything, then that is 100% voice. And that was really weird. That actually felt quite unusual going in and doing that after all the hours of doing the mocap. So it's something I'm familiar with and comfortable with. And yeah, I think it's really like the more visual stuff, film and TV, I think I'll be a bit more uncomfortable because I'm not used to that.
So when you do the audio series, do you work in person with everyone as you record, or is there any kind of process that you do to make it like feel natural?
Yeah, so the answer is that depends, and it really does. And I think with the comedy thing, something like Hitchhiker's Guide, I don't like us all in the room, but you always have to leave that little gap of, you know, you don't want overlap because there's just no choice for the edit, right? That's whatever. So you have to kind of remember where the laugh is and time it right and all that. So that's its own skill. With Big Finish, who do Torchwood and all the Doctor Who stuff, there used to be a studio that had purpose-built soundproof booths all in the room, so you can be as natural as you like. So that was really awesome. That was like my favorite way to work because you're working straight off someone. And then through lockdown and just availability, that sort of thing, we would work directly with the director. They just read in a very flat voice and you have to imagine the actor. And then when it's put together, you forgot that you recorded it that way. So there are many different ways to edit. But I think, yeah, unless you've got those soundproof booths, and I think that was something unique to Big Finish. It takes up a lot of room, that's for sure. Yeah, working ensemble style like that, there is, you pick it up though, you see what other people are doing quite quickly. And it's just that leaving a gap before you jump in. Yeah,
that's amazing. Eric, you wanna follow that up?
So you obviously are on Twitter a good bit. You're seeing the incredible amount of love for Karlach that everybody's given to the character. Drawings, people talking about worshiping Karlach and things like this. Is that something you expected, or is this just?
No, it's not something I expected, Eric. Come on. Yes, it's absolutely that. No, we knew she's a great character, right? And one of the lead writers was saying to PC Gamer quite recently that they knew what they were doing when they were writing her, and that she's the result of EA in a way. All the feedback they were getting off players about the existing companions, they were then putting into Karlach, as far as I understand it. But she's such an all-rounder, isn't she? I was expecting like certain demographics to just go, no, I'm not interested. But even if they're not interested in her romantically, they want to be best friends with her. So like everyone wants to hang around her, which is really cool. But the way I see it, she's like the person whose shoulder you can cry on if the bullies, you know, have picked on you, but she will also kick the shit out of the bullies afterwards. Like she's just this incredible all-rounder, and the range of her, you know, interests and abilities, it's quite magnificent. And she's charismatic. I went with the whole tieflings are charismatic thing, so why not? We knew it was going to be good, but we didn't know it was going to be this big. It's like a degree bigger than I thought it would be, if that makes sense. And if you that first weekend, the concurrent numbers on Steam, and there was Sven made a tweet that said, "Oh, I've told the cloud guys that it was going to be 100,000 people on the servers," and it was something like 800,000. So you can tell like how much bigger it actually was. But But yeah, I was a bit worried that she was becoming the meme before people have played the game. Because there's a version of like you don't become friends with her and you don't see this little softy cuddly teddy bear side of her at all, and she's not going to let that guard down unless you get to really, really know her. So I was a little bit worried, but people are playing all sorts. I mean, some people just kill her on sight and and get ripped on by the internet, but there's different Karlachs to know, and I'm glad that that's now being uncovered in the last couple of weeks. Yeah,
that actually kind of perfectly feeds into Dash's next question.
Oh, sorry, Dash.
Yeah. All right. So what is your favorite line from Baldur's Gate 3 that you did as Karlach? We know the internet fell in love with the riding you till you see stars line, but was there one that stuck with you?
Yeah, I've actually written it down so I get it right. Mizora, I've had more pleasant shits than you, and at least those can be buried after.
I think I remember that one.
That's my favorite, and I was worried. I did a different version of it, and when I saw it in game, I was like, yes. If nothing else, then that line is in there, because like she's been dying to say that for 10 years. She has kept her mouth shut, and now she's out. She couldn't give a shit, and it just said everything about her. I just loved it.
So while a lot of the development of Baldur's Gate happened, you mentioned 2020 a little bit earlier. So a lot of the development of the game happened during the pandemic. And obviously that forced a lot of people to move to a kind of remote work lifestyle. Did you get a chance to interact a lot with your fellow actors on the project, like along the way, or was there a lot of people maybe you had worked with previously? Because we know there's a ton of crossover in this industry where you do get to work with people that you've worked with on previous projects.
Yeah, so bearing in mind that I came on the project after lockdown, and actually I missed a lot of pain because I think, tell me, because I don't want this written down wrong, right? I believe they started as voice only, and then later on the mocap got added. That's what I heard, and it's almost like they had to scrap everything they did. Right, so I didn't have to go through that. So when I came in, I was like straight off the starting blocks and into mocap. But yeah, I know a ton of them, and again, I wrote this down so I don't forget anyone. Tim Downey, I've known forever. Gail, Amelia Tyler. I've been on the game scene since about 2017. Seriously, I did a game back in 2014, I think. But in terms of like going to events, meeting people, meeting devs, actually getting to know people rather than knocking on the doors of sound houses, producers. Yeah, Amelia Tyler is one of the first people I met. She very kindly gave up a role in a demo and recommended me for it on the basis that the artwork showed the character was mixed race, and she wasn't comfortable with that, and I am, and so I got the call. So I'll never forget that, and I'm really grateful. And it's just amazing to be working side by side as a peer now. Do you know what I mean? Because she's such a track record, and she's very generous with giving advice in public and all the rest. So that's one. That's two. Scott Joseph, we had the same agent 10 years ago. He plays the Emperor. And he's massive. He's like over 6 foot, and he's quite slim. So we would all bump into each other in mocap suits. Like no dignity whatsoever, running across it. Yeah, sorry. That's how I saw Tim after a few years as well. Tracy Wiles, we did Sandman together. She's incredible talent. I mean, yeah, we worked kind of ensemble style, and it was really old school. It was like, do you think you can do this voice? In you go, that's your role, and that was, well, a lot of the time we were doing really big scenes in 1 or 2 takes. So I felt very lucky, and again, just really honored to be working with that person. And then I think finally Dave Jones, who's Halcyon, we've known each other since about 2017. I believe he bounded up to me and said, I've been trying to meet you, there you are. He'd heard I didn't know him, and I heard he was in the vicinity, and I think he liked some of my work, and he found me. We became buddies at various conferences and this, that, and the other. We both said, oh god, I'd really like to work on a game with you. And he was in Hobbs Barrow as well. But also he'd been working on Halcyon the whole time and having to keep that quiet. And then we worked out we were both in this, and again saw each other in the mocap, and dignity be gone. And so that's 5 I can think of, plus Kirsty Gilmore, who I knew from before, and Natalie Jones as well, who was a director on this. I knew for about 6 years. It's rare that we get, a really big game with British voices, so I think that's partly why we all found each other. I think everybody did this game, the 248 actors, so I think everybody is the answer.
Eric, you wanna follow that up?
Yeah, sure. So earlier you actually mentioned a little bit, you talked about Games Voice Connect.
Yeah.
You mentioned it. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So Game Voices Connect, in which I got Amelia to do an appearance, and Dave Gilbert as well, and Kirsty. So it was one of those things that when we thought lockdown was going to be about 6 months, right? I'll do this project I was always thinking of, because we'll just do that and then we'll go back. So it's something I was sitting on for a while, but I first met Dave Gilbert on a panel in 2017 at Adventure X, and we did a panel with Doug Cockle, which is why I'm on this, because I watched him, and also I talked to him, and this was awesome. So it was him and me who'd done fuck all, and I was like, okay, right, here comes the imposter syndrome, but you've done this before, it's all good. But that was sort of the beginnings of it. But we talked to this very it's a narrative focused conference, and there's a lot of indie devs there, and it became very apparent through the Q&A that they weren't all professional directors. And as a theatre trained person, even in film and TV, everyone has very set roles. So you got your casting director, your director, your movement person, whatever, but they don't cross over. And I learned in games they do, very much so. And in fact, you might even be talking to the wrong person. The sound engineer might not be the person casting, it might be the lead programmer or something. Like it's all over the place. And I think I came away from that thinking I need to have a lot more empathy for them, and I also thought they need to understand how we work, because I think a lot of it was, oh, how do you do the funny voices, and we don't need you, we can do the funny voices ourselves, and our advice was like, off you go, see how you go, see how horrible it is, and then give me a call, that sort of thing. So there was this real disconnect between like what we all do, and so Game Voices Connect was an attempt to have record a conversation. I don't think it really needs repeating very often, because I think we're having the same conversations about literally who are you and what do you do. So we had we did split them up, but of course there was crossover. So we had a writing panel, a casting panel, directing panel, a directing session, and then we had post-production as well. And I just grabbed everyone I worked with, because I didn't have any money, it was just me. And now those conversations are up on YouTube under Game Voices Connect. And so I'm good at this. I'm good at this stuff. You can tell I've done this before. I've done this for years. And it's all there. And I don't think those fundamental questions go out of date. But it'd be interesting now to do it again, and where we are in our careers, and maybe come back. But freshen it up a bit as well, not just my mates who are doing it for free. But yeah, it was an attempt to collaborate a bit more with each other, because I think the best, I think that the problem with AAA is because of the NDA culture as well, because of not trusting us with the material. Sue the shit out of me if I break NDA. I am up for it. Let's do it. But like, if I don't know who I am, where I'm going, why is this happening, what genre I'm in, who am I talking to, I can't give you my best performance. And I think that's why sometimes indies sort of trump the AAAs in terms of performances, because they trust you with all that. I didn't sign an NDA with Hobbs Barrow. Like, there's no reason for me to leak secrets. There's no point of anyone doing that. And I was given the entire script on day one. I know it's a lot smaller, but the point is I had a direct line to the writer on day one, and I could go back and forth. And that did require, I didn't do psychic casting on that. I did have to have a proper think about who this person who's quite different to me was, and how I could bring her a bit closer to me. So yeah, it's a dialogue really, and I'd like to maybe try with some AAAs, and not in a way that we shame them, but in a way that like we can foster better communication between us all and produce better work.
Love that. Dash, you want to come with our second to last question?
Yes. So what was the experience like of doing the player character in Demon Souls? A lot of those NPCs from the original game came back to do their roles, but like the player character didn't have a voice and didn't even do like the grunts or death sounds. So you came in to do that, right?
Yeah. So that was summer 2020, in a country where we don't do aircon, and they locked me in a glass box for 2 hours. And it was like so at that point, between the actors coming in, they were spraying down the box with bleach because that kills COVID, as we all know. So you go into the bleach smelling room and scream your life out, and it was a little bit trippy. But yeah, no, it needed to be done. The localization needed to be done, because I think 1 or 2 times in the session I said, "Oh, I don't think I understand what you're asking me to do. Have you got the Japanese sample?" And they play it, and it was so different to the vocalization we'd made. Like, it was clearly Japanese, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was even more, it was more vocal. And I think a lot of the times when I was dying in it, they said, "No, you're harder than that." Because they didn't want to give it away that I was already dead. But I saw the words "you died" and I worked it out really early. But it was mainly like dying in different conditions. So like, you've been poisoned to death, you've been electrocuted to death, you're falling from 30 feet, you're falling from 50 feet, you're falling from 50 feet on fire. And then you had to do all the weapons, one-handed, two-handed rolls. And a lot of that was to the visual. I didn't quite understand why they couldn't cut it up. But there's a sequence right at the beginning, and one of the male voices made it and none of the rest of us did, and we had to, it was like 8 or 9 different efforts to, if you remember, he gets hits and then he's dragged along the floor. That was all done in one take. Some poor guy had to do that, and I remember doing that over and over again. It's like, can't you just get the bits and then just drop it in? But no, we had to do that. So it was a little bit trippy, and I knew what it was immediately. And yeah, that was a fun little, it's a nice little footnote on the career to say that you've done something like that. Yeah, it was really cool. Thank you.
That is awesome. So you've embraced, Eric kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, you've embraced fans of the game in a way I think a lot of actors don't. So you retweet fan art, you interact with people who were even just really fans of the character across social media. So just wanted to get your take. What have been some of your favorite interactions that you've had with fans of your performance and fans of the character?
Yeah, so first of all, I'll say that like every interaction I've had so far has been positive, like every single one, and I wasn't expecting that. And the Twitter, because I'm only on Twitter, the Twitter that I experienced is really mean and horrible. I'm sure it really is still, but for Karlach, it's just gorgeous. So that has taken me by surprise, and I think as long as people are respectful, polite, and be sarcastic, just make that clear. Just like I have to. As long as that carries on, I'm happy to keep interacting, because I know what it's like the other end when you love a character. And I remember because I'm just speaking to a screen, right? I haven't got another actor, I haven't got the lines are out of order, and just thinking like, I hope they love this. I really fucking hope they love this, because I had that job as well going on at the same time on top of it. So I love the art particularly. I can't draw. I know it takes them ages to do it, and I love the fact that something I did could inspire someone in a completely different medium, and I just love it. It's like having the effort reflected back at you in a way, if that makes sense. But I just love all the different Karlachs, and yeah, because there were some badass Karlachs, and then they played the game and went, oh, she's not always badass. There's a lot of very cuddly teddy bear Karlachs now.
She's our favorite teddy bear barbarian. So also, before we go ahead and end, we also wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of plug in anything that you've been working on, or, obviously aside from Baldurs Gate, because we have been singing the praises of this game for the past few weeks on our episodes, but we also wanted to give you a chance to kind of talk about some of the things you're passionate about as well.
Oh, cool. So this has been my world too. And as I said, I've been waiting for the PS5 version to come out, so I've sort of been trying to selectively watch what's come out of that. And then I went back in and did the epilogue, quite close to release. I'll let you know. It wasn't really a panicky result of shit going down. That was it was measured, and I was asked my availability, and we went in and we did that. I've been working on a point and click adventure game called Cabernet, where I play a vampire lady, which is something I haven't done before. And that's with Party for Introverts. I don't know when that's going to be out, but they've been showing a demo. What else am I doing? I'm doing Comic-Con in London. I hope we get asked to do that around the world. It'd be cool to see you guys. And as I said, like, oh God, I got recognized in the street. That's a first. And I was like, oh. And he said, yeah, I saw your face on the interview. And I was like, shit, they can see my face now. Shit. But that was like a moment. And again, really sweet and polite, and had good hygiene, and just full of surprises. I've experienced lots of different fandoms across whatever. And I was expecting something a little more not divisive, but maybe just a bit different, really. Everyone's just been so nice. I can't get my head around it. And I think the others would say the same. As anyone that's, you know, gone and approached them has been to be really full of love for this whole thing. It's just people are great about it. So yeah, appearing at a Comic-Con near you. I think that's it. My life is now Twitter and Tumblr for art, and I've got one more session of Cabernet to go, and that will be done. And as I said, I don't know when that will be out. Please hire me. Apparently, I was good in Baldurs Gate. That'd be nice. I think maybe it's early days to start going. No one's hired me. Come on, I'm here. But Twitter's screwed. I can't slide into anyone's DMs again. That's not. I'm never going to see the comment. We're going to see it. It's going to be hidden under an advert. So you have to find me.
it's so hard. We keep expecting something to take the place of Twitter, like maybe Threads, maybe Blue Vine. Like there's so many things, but if the guy could just sell Twitter, I think maybe we can get it. Yeah, maybe we can.
I do love the fact that the whole world can like metaphorically kick him in the nuts every day. Just make it hell.
It just
every week everyone's like, right, I'm done. I'm leaving Twitter. And where are you going?
Right back.
That whatever proprietary law that is covering them, no one is able to replicate this. We are stuck here for a good time yet. But yeah, there may be other things afoot, but it's too early to say. I was hoping, if I can actually get good at the game, and again it's way too early, I was hoping to play as Origin Karlach and do a commentary, like a director's commentary while I play really badly, and tell you maybe what Karlach's thinking, and maybe have a memory or two. Oh yeah, we had pizza that night when we filmed this one, stuff like that. So yeah, I'm just going to get good at it first, because I don't really want that to be the focus of the stream.
If you do end up doing
that,
yeah, we will definitely be keeping an eye out for that in case you do, because that would be amazing. Well, Samantha, we want to thank you so immensely for this, and this has been so fun. And we, like I said, we are absolutely huge fans of the game and your character. I even before I started playing the game, I saw Carlock and I was like, yep, that's gonna be my partner in the game. I already know, don't have to see anything else. And I have absolutely grown to love her character. I know Dash and Eric, I think you said she had the most wholesome story of basically all of the characters in the game, you felt like, and it shines through tremendously. So we want to thank you so much for agreeing to come on here. It has been so fun.
Thank you. The feeling's mutual. I'm honored. There were some really fun questions in there as well. So yeah, appreciate it. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and we'll end this one here. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch y'all next week.
Have a good one.
Bye, guys.